Hey everybody, as you can see, I've now had the operation on my hand. I'm going to have this cast for 4 to 6 weeks-ish. I don't actually know exactly what they did to fix it yet because no one would tell me or no one knew. But it's been done. 4 to 6 weeks in the cast, as I say. I'm getting a check-up on the 28th. I'm going to have it looked at. Still waiting on the MRI for my knee. But what I thought I'd do is I'm going to tell you about my experience with the NHS, and I think you can see what my opinion's going to be from the title of this video. But starting at the very beginning, when I crashed 5 weeks ago, obviously I was taken to the hospital via ambulance. I was semi-conscious, I was conscious, but I wasn't making a lot of sense apparently. But I ended up spending 4.5 hours before a doctor first touched me, and I went into the majors ward. For 4.5 hours, I could have had an internal bleeding or anything, but luckily I didn't. They x-rayed me and looked me over, but they got rid of me as quick as they could, basically. They didn't x-ray my left hand, and obviously as you can't see, but my left knee is the problem, my left hand. It's the two things that hit the car, so it only makes sense that most damage is going to be on that side. But they didn't x-ray this hand, they x-rayed this hand, which, what sense does that make? They discharged me very quickly. Didn't really give me any follow-up care, didn't say go and see your doctor or anything like that, so it was just literally left as that's that. Obviously I continued having problems with my hand, and my knee, and my other hand, and my head, so I went to the doctors it was at least 3 or 4 weeks after the accident when I could actually get in a car and get down there, because they wouldn't come and visit me for some reason. So then I was referred back to the hospital, at which point they did the x-ray, as I explained in my last video, and they found instantly that there was a detached ligament that had to be reattached, and that's what the operation was for. Well, they said to me the operation would be 2 days, it would be on the Wednesday. I went on the Monday, and it was supposed to be on the Wednesday. And as I explained in my last video, it was the day I was supposed to go. Well, turns out, I was supposed to have had my operation on that Wednesday, but they didn't ring me and let me know. The surgeon seemed to think that he told me to be there at 12:30, whatever, but he hadn't. I'm sure he hadn't. But even if he had, as I said, I was waiting to be told when I was booked in, because they didn't know at that point. So by the time I rang, it was too late, and I couldn't go on that Wednesday. So it was moved until Monday, which is the Monday just gone. I went in at 7:30 in the morning, and I thought, probably hoping I'd be out by 12, 1 o'clock, because it shouldn't have taken very long to do the operation. But actually I ended up sitting there for over 8 hours before I was seen. Eventually I did get through and got seen, had my operation, and I was back out by about 8, 9 o'clock at night, so I was there for about 13 hours in total, which is just a joke. I mean, and I found out, and it took me all day. I was talking to doctors and things, asking what was going on. I mean, I've had admissions from people in the NHS, I'm not going to mention any names, I don't want anyone in trouble, but they've admitted that in the, well not the A&E, the majors unit, when I went in the first time, I was fobbed off. They wanted to just get me out of the place because they had so much to deal with, which, well, now I can understand that somebody might have a sprained ankle or something, as long as it's not going to kill them, but when you've just had a serious motorcycle accident, they didn't check. They were going to log roll me and check my spine. They didn't check my spine. They did x-ray my neck and my knee and my hand, but only one of my hands, and thankfully everything's okay apart from my knee. Something isn't right with it, and that's what the MRI is going to find out. But through talking to the doctors, I discovered that the reason why I waited for 8 hours before I was seen was because there is the two examples I've been told about of these cards that you're written up on, your information. You have an orange card or a green card. Now, an orange card is you're put on the trauma unit, so where you're put into a ward and then you're getting done through the trauma theatres. So if a gap comes up, you get done. If there is no gap because someone's come in from a car crash or something and needs an instant operation, you will be delayed because of them. Now, I mean, after waiting for 5 or 6 hours, I discovered this, and I said, well, what the hell? Why is this? Why am I in this situation before? Well, shouldn't I be on one of these green cards, which is basically, they have it literally, it's like, Mr. Such and Such will be in at this time, Mr. Such and Such will be in this time, Mr. Such and Such, and so it's in an order, and you know when you're going to get seen. Because all I got told the whole time I'm sat in this room with nothing to do, because I thought I wasn't going to be there that long, was just, oh, we don't know yet, we don't know yet. And after 5 hours, they said it would be 2 hours, and after 7 hours, it was actually a bit longer. But it turns out the reason I was on the orange card rather than the green card was because I would have been on a green card operation on the Wednesday when I was booked in, but because they fucked up, basically, and didn't tell me that the operation was booked, they had to give me the quickest appointment they could because my hand needed to be operated on, because the longer you leave it, the less chance of this operation working is. Now, obviously, it had already been 5 weeks by this, well, just under 5 weeks by the point I got operated on. So they needed to get done seriously quickly, and it wasn't getting done, and it would have probably been done within a couple of days of my crash had they actually x-rayed it. But there you go. So I was put in as soon as possible, which meant basically going to the hospital, sitting in a room, and I'm waiting. And I mean, if I'd been informed that I was waiting that long, it would have been okay. But I didn't know because they didn't tell me. So I've spent quite a lot of time in hospitals in the past few weeks. And the other thing is, after they did the operation, no one could tell me what they've done to my hand. The surgeon couldn't tell me what was done to my hand beforehand. He couldn't say what they were going to do. They questioned at one point whether they were going to actually do the operation because they found that my thumb was a bit more stable than they thought it was. But they had to do a thing called a stress x-ray, which is where they actually bend your finger sideways, and yes, that hurts like a complete bastard. And they x-rayed it and found that yes, indeed, it did need doing. It's tightened up a little bit, but it wasn't enough. It was going to, in years to come, I would have a very easily dislocatable finger, and it would just not be very good for me. And obviously with riding bikes, I'd really like to have a decent thumb. Now I got sent down to have it re-x-rayed because they didn't know if it needed doing or not. So they just say they did this stress x-ray. And after I had that x-ray, they were supposed to get a porter to take me back up to the ward because it was taking me so long to walk. Because I actually ended up walking down because they asked for a porter to come that never turned up. And I just said, look, I'm going to walk because I just want to get this done with. Because if this x-ray proves I don't need the operation, well then I'm happy to just walk down there now, know that, and go home. But unfortunately, as I say, it turns out I did need it. But when I was leaving there and they said, it's alright, we'll get a porter to take you back upstairs, they turned up and basically tried to tell me I could go home. And I was like, oh, so you've looked at the x-ray and I'm fine, I can go. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. When they go off to get a wheelchair, they come back and say, oh, sorry, no, you can't go, you're going back up to your ward, someone told me something different. And this is where I realise what's going wrong in the NHS. Now, I know if you're in America, you're going to be saying, but you don't have to pay for it. We do. We pay something called national insurance in our pay. Now, it isn't a lot of money, really, compared to what you're paying. But the level of care you're getting is very good. It's like our private care. We do pay for our national health care, but it is just a joke. And I don't think it's, from my experience of being in hospitals quite a bit over the past few weeks and sitting in there for 8 hours and listening to sort of people coming in and going out and the things that are going on, and it's the problem with the NHS is not the doctors, it's not the specialists, it's the administration. It's the fact that no one communicates. I mean, I got asked if I had false teeth 8 times. I know they have to keep going back over paperwork and everyone needs to ask their own little bit. Because you have anaesthetists who come and see you, you have doctors come and see you, you have nurses, and they have to do all this legal stuff to cover their arse. But the problem is, no one's organising this very well. And I'm sure the NHS could get people in and out, well not necessarily in and out, but process people so much faster if a much better system was made. Because it was half on paper, half on this iPod Touch that we're having to fill stuff in. There was people coming in and saying one thing to me, then another person coming in and saying another. They didn't know what each other were doing. There's no communication. And the organisation of it all is just so stupid. It would be, the NHS is only in the state that it's in now, I'm pretty sure of this, because of poor administration and poor organisation. The amount of people that stood around doing nothing, but yet you've got doctors like my surgeon who was running around like a blue-ass fly trying to get as many people through the operating theatre as he could. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, another example of lack of communications was the doctor that I was talking to said, do you have any problems with any painkillers? And I said, no, I don't, but I do have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, so my stomach can get a bit upset by painkillers, and that's the reason I'd stopped taking cocodamol a few weeks ago, and I was just dealing with the pain instead because I couldn't be bothered to keep dealing with a bad stomach because of the antibiotics and the painkillers I was on. So he gave me a different type of painkiller and an anti-inflammatory on my form for when I got discharged after the operation, because I didn't think this was going to hurt much, but I'll be honest, this hurts more than pretty much anything that I've had in this crash so far, and I'm finding it a little bit difficult to do this video and keep my mind on track. I keep having to stop because I'm on a lot of painkillers. Because, but what was I talking about? Yeah, things that, yes. See? I keep cutting that out. They changed my painkillers so it wouldn't upset my stomach. A nurse comes in to discharge me, eventually, and she scribbled out what the doctor had put on there and changed it to cocodamol again and said, I don't understand why he gave you those pills, you wouldn't want one of those, you want these ones. And I said, well no, it's because these upset my stomach and those ones wouldn't have done. And she was like, oh. And by which point I was like, give me the paperwork, give me the pills, I don't give a fuck, I'm leaving. Because as I said, I've been there for 13 hours. I hadn't eaten or drunk anything in 16, 17 hours or something, I don't know. I had a headache from not drinking water because I get that, as I think most people do, but it really does hit me that the NHS, no one should be had a go at in the NHS. They're all trying their hardest, and as I say, a couple of doctors and a couple of nurses did level with me and said, like one of the nurses said to me, this is an absolute joke. She said, this is not fair to you at all, the fact that you're having to sit here and wait. And I was like, well, yeah, I know. And I was close to trying to get it rebooked. But of course it was important, so I had to just sit there and wait for hours more. But as I say, I don't want to slag the NHS off, but I think that what the problem is the money that's going into the NHS is being wasted. It's not being spent on the things it needs to be spent on. It's just... I wish there was someone who should be in charge of the NHS who could really shake the shit up. Get everything sorted out, change the system completely, because all this paperwork all the nurses are having to do takes so long. It could have been done beforehand, it could have been done differently, but it's not, and it's all down to them, and they're working their asses off. You can see them. I mean, when I went in there, I saw the night shift leave. When I went in there, the night shift were changing to day shift, and as I was leaving, the day shift were turning to night... not leaving, sorry, as I was going from operation, they changed back to the night shift people. And you see these people coming off an 8-hour shift and they look absolutely exhausted because they're working so hard. But the system is holding them back. Now, I know no one's going to listen to me. I'm just a motor vlogger who's had a crash and experienced this, and I'm sure people have had a lot more experience with the NHS than me. And I mean, I'm not slagging them off because they've done a lot for me. I discovered this operation in America would have cost $10,000. So obviously, it is a good thing, but they're wasting money, it's been put in the wrong places, it's just wrong, and it needs to be sorted out. Anyway, I'm okay, as I say, my hand's in this cast for 4 to 6 weeks, so I've got to get physio on it after that and stuff like that, so a bike isn't going to be the next 4 to 6 weeks, and my knee's got to get looked at, and if that's anything worse, Jesus Christ, I hope it isn't, because I don't want to have another operation. So that's the situation with me. And I'll catch you next time. I will try and make some more videos, and I've got that Q&A video where I'm on the bike, because it was filmed a long time ago to sort out, but as I say, with this just being done, I'm not really in the mood to do a lot, but I thought I owed it to you guys to do this video, because you're sending me a lot of messages, and it really does help, sort of just, people just sending a little message. I mean, even some people sent me some funny videos and stuff. Don't do that, I'll get inundated, but I'm just saying, if you want to see what's going on with me more day to day, my Twitter and my Facebook links are in the description, so you can follow me on there and you can find out stuff from there. So anyway, I'll catch you next time. You can see my knee has a knee brace, which is helping me a lot now. The cut in my knee's mostly healed up.